This time I'm going to be talking about basically trying to use the same setup we had before, but basically we're going to use it now with a bigger piece of paper. So this time we're going for a piece of paper. This is just to give you a demo. This is A3 in size, and what I would tend to do is tape that down potentially, but you might need some tape, but it's entirely up to you. So as you can see, we are back with Camera Lucida. We've got our grid sheet. Everything is still nice in alignment. You can obviously check that out by using your front camera. So we need the lovely OSMO, and we need to make sure that that is on top. Then we haven't changed anything from the last setting, if you remember that video, and we can obviously go back into the top camera, make sure we're on the front camera. If you go into it and yours looks really weird and it's all gone out in terms of sizing and everything else, like these are now elongated and stuff, don't stress it. You want to check first of all that you've got your stand exactly as you had it before. So what I tend to do, I think I sort of discussed it before, but I tend to put a marking on the stand, make sure that I've got my stand in exactly the same position, put the iPad on top, that we know that that is consistent. It's always worth checking, make sure that everything is still okay. But the first thing to do is check that if you press the restore button, make sure everything restores as it should do, so that when you put your sheet back on, you are pretty much square again. You haven't got to worry about that. That's fundamentally what we covered last time with the save and the restore button. We saved the setup and we've just done the restore just to make sure we're exactly where we should be onto the A3. It's not rocket science, so it's nothing out of the ordinary, and I'm sure you'll see why that's obvious when you actually see it. This is the picture had before, so I've just checked my squareness. First thing we're going to do is load in the picture. Again, we're in setup mode, not drawing mode. Don't forget, drawing mode is the hand with the pen. Going to go into the open camera roll. I'm going to take the picture. In this case, I'll just take that because I know it's landscape, so it'll fit quite well for what we want to do here. And there's the pretty couple. And what we're going to do is we really want to get one side of the picture over on the right, the other person on the left, and sort of filling roughly the A3 sheet rather than just going for the A4 size. What I would do is I would basically look at where your paper is, so slide the slider across and you can see the image. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to sort of position, don't forget we're in setup mode here. I'm going to position the picture where I want it in conjunction with the paper. Now, obviously, if I go into drawing mode now, what I'm going to end up with is a picture, one picture, and it's going to sort of basically center itself on this big A3 piece of paper, which we don't want. That's obviously not going to work now. So the way we get around that is we enlarge picture in the setup mode, basically creating a bigger picture. We're looking at now picture. So I've got to move my paper across to the right hand side because I'm now looking at the right hand person. Basically looking at a picture that is going to be, this is the shape here, it's going to take up that sort of space. Then what we want to do is we want to paint the left hand side. So I'll show you how we go about doing that. Mode, I've got my picture, right hand side of the picture that I'm going to draw on here in the right position, and I've obviously shifted my A3 piece of paper, not centered on the iPad, but over to the right hand side. That's the first thing. Once I'm happy with that, what I'll do is I'll go into draw mode, and if you remember, draw mode is the center button down the bottom here. We're in setup mode, so I go into draw mode, which, remember, you can't draw really unless you're in draw mode. I can then change the transparency. We can see basically what we're drawing. What I'm going to do is I'm not going to use this pencil because you're not easily going to see it on the paper. It's going to be easier so I'm going to do a very quick outline of this. This is not a masterpiece that we're going for here. We're going for a sketchy sort of view of things. Obviously, you would potentially position this, somewhat different to how we're going. What I'm going to do is I'm going to draw this. What I'll do is I'll speed it up when I create the video. You're not sitting here watching me do it. This process would normally, to do the right hand side, if I'm just doing a sketch, would probably take anything between 5 and 10 minutes. We'll just go through this process now. Okay, so yeah, it's rough. It's literally 5 minutes sketching and gives you an outline. That's fine. I mean, obviously we're in drawing mode. That's as far as I can move this image around, but I can still zoom in, do my details if I need to, and then everything's okay. The next step is obviously we need to draw something over on the left-hand side. The way we're going to do that is we're going to go out of drawing mode, back now into setup mode. Looks the same, but as you know, you shouldn't draw in this mode, which is fine. And then what we're going to do is we're going to position now the left-hand side of the picture. We are, in a way, breaking the rules of positioning pictures, because you can just about make out now that I've got my original picture here, but I've now moved across. I've now got the left-hand side of the picture from the original picture. I've got the left-hand side in view now. Don't forget, we're still in setup mode. So what I need to do now, I haven't pinched and zoomed this, which is very important. Don't start resizing this image at this point. Do not touch the size of it. Just move it across from the right to the left. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to move this picture how it was. And what I want to draw is this picture. So what I have to do is get the element of the picture I want to have in view, get a little bit of the other side in view, and then I can now move, I take that off, I can move my paper across. I'm now moving my paper across. What I'm trying to do now, superimpose my picture here on the bit of the picture that's still remaining on the right hand side. I can manipulate this around until I get it exactly where the other picture was. And when I'm happy with that, I get it exactly right after a little bit of positioning. So I've now got that exactly where the other picture was, and I've got my original picture over on the right, but I've superimposed what I've already drawn back over the top of it. Now, once I've got that, I've got this real estate down here to draw the left-hand side of the picture. I can go back into drawing mode, which is, remember, go back into drawing mode, and I can start drawing. Now the key, and this is important, is when you move your paper from one side to the other, don't pinch and zoom in setup mode the picture. It's still got to stay exactly the same size. That's because you've already drawn half of it, and obviously you don't want the other size to be a different size because everything's got to join together. Making sure you've got your paper exactly where you want it. What I do sometimes is I get a bit of masking tape, and once I've got it in position, hold down my picture and I just whack a little bit of masking tape onto the paper just so I keep it exactly where I want it. Don't need much. So now I can go into drawing mode. Remember drawing mode, the hand with the pencil in it. I'm now in drawing mode, and you can see I can change obviously the transparency. What I can do now is I can draw the other side of the picture and the rocks and everything else if I wanted to. This is just a quick sketch, quick and dirty. This is just to give you the idea of what you can do. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is do the fast forward and draw on the other side. Okay, so I'm not going to be winning any prizes for this picture, and but it was literally 5 minutes. So what I tend to do now is, obviously, if I was doing this in a real life situation, I would spend an awful lot more time on it and make sure it was a lot better. Do a rough visual, probably using pencil, and then go over obviously with watercolors, etc., whatever medium you're using. I'm still in drawing mode, so I've kind of finished my quick and dirty sketch. If I go back to setup, you can see basically where we are. I can basically move this image around as long as I don't pinch and zoom it. What I'm sort of basically doing is if I want to go back to working on this side, what I need to do is move my paper over to the right hand side, and all I need to do is reline it back up again with where I was. Now this is normally a lot easier because at this point I would be into watercolors and stuff like that. All I'm really doing is looking at the picture to pick up shades and coloring and shadows and stuff like that. So I'm not at this point doing the accurate line work. That's already been done here. All I really need to do is approximately line it up with the right hand side again in setup mode. So we're still in setup mode. As you can see, you can line it up quite accurately actually to where you want it. Once you've got it in, you want its right position, you could tape it down again if you wanted to, but we would then go back into our drawing mode. Don't forget, once you're in drawing mode, you can pinch and zoom. So if you do want to go into the details, you can do that because pinch and zoom, my pencil is going to be in the same place. I put it on this highlight. When I zoom back out again, my pencil is exactly the same position as it was. Pencil is in exactly the same position. If I zoom that out, it's still in the same position. So I'm in drawing mode and I'm not screwing it up by basically resizing. I can resize as much as I want to when I'm in drawing mode. I cannot resize using this technique when I'm in setup mode. When you're in the setup mode, you get all your sizing and scaling done first. That's basically it. Once you get to this point, you're into the finer details. Basically what you're doing now is you're going through and refining, perhaps adding in some details. You're starting your painting work perhaps and bring in some of your shading and your highlights and your shadows, and doing it sort of a bit more sort of freehand and watercolory. So obviously we'd pick up some more details around here with the shirt that we kind of missed out. So even if you miss out some parts that you think, oh, I didn't draw that originally, you can always come back. When you're in drawing mode, you can always come back and you can pinch and zoom and move things around, and you can come back in and you can carry on drawing. I hope this has sort of given you some ideas, perhaps, rather than anything else. It's more for ideas of how you can use Camera Lucida to fundamentally create a much larger picture. So we're up to sort of A3 size now. I could go larger. It doesn't, it's not going to affect it, because basically when you're doing a lot of watercolor, what you're really doing is you're looking for effect and the structure, that's for building landscapes and things like that. So as long as you don't pinch and zoom when you're in setup mode, you can always reposition your paper back to where it was. So when you set up your original picture, you could zoom this out even more and manipulate it and do all sorts of things, or you could zoom right in, do it that way. But that's A3. That works really well for me. Again, you're a step up now from your A4 size, so we've gone up a level. Me personally, I probably wouldn't frame or have a picture any bigger than A3. I'm not after drawing poster size. Perhaps if you're doing something, like more like a poster effect, you could still use this technique. It will be a bit harder, but this was literally, I know it looks rubbish, but this was literally 5 minutes. Yeah, it gives you, obviously I'd normally do it in pencil because I'd be doing, that's watercolor afterwards, or I'd be doing pen and ink and then rubbing out the pencil. It depends how you really want to work. There's nothing to stop you using this same technique, exactly the same setup we had before, the same perspective. I haven't had to change that at all because I saved it. Everything was saved from the last time. I just did a restore to get everything back to how it was. So I know that this picture is not distorted. The faces aren't elongated. Everything is square with everything else, because we went through that procedure in the last video. So that's how I do it. Hope you got something out of this video, and I'm happy to do any other videos. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that, and I will catch up soon. Cheers, bye.